Hello class. In this video I wanted to demonstrate passing arguments into methods both as a primitive type or as an array type. This is the version of code that we had developed in the prior video, the add3ints method, where we have three parameters and they're all integer parameters, primitive types. So when we invoke the function down on line 18, we're passing in the variable values var1, var2, and var3 into param1, param2, param3, where we then do our calculations on line 8 and return the value. So when we're using primitive types such as these, we're passing the value of the variable into the method. So a copy is made, and the method operates on the copy of that value. It's not operating on that variable itself, it is operating based on the value that is copied in. So when I run this, and you can see in the output already it says 6. If I run it, it says the output value is 6. So if I had gone in and changed, after we did our computation, let's change the value of param1 to 999, some big number. And I run this, and we'll see our output is still 6, as we expected. We did our calculation, and then we updated the parameter 1 value to 999 and returned sum. If we were passing it by value, I would not expect to see the values of var1, var2, and var3 change after we invoke the method. So let's add a print statement in here for var1. var1 is, and we'll just print out the value of var1. And the reason why I'm picking var1 is if you look at the method signature, var1 on line 19 now corresponds to the first parameter, param1. So if I change param1, I do not expect to see var1 change its value. And if I run this, var1 has a value of 1, which is the exact value we started out with. So it's passing in a copy of itself. And it's not passing in the exact variable, it's passing in a copy of its value so the method can do its code. And that's true for all the primitive types. It's passing it by value. There is another way, pass by reference. Pass by reference is passing the actual variable's memory location into the method. And then the method is going to work on the same memory location. So if it's working on the same memory location as the original variable, it's working on that original variable. So that's called pass by reference. I'm going to demonstrate that when we're using an array as a parameter. So let's modify our code. And you know what? Why don't we just make another copy of it? We'll make a separate version. We'll copy it, and we'll paste it, and we'll call this add. Why don't we just call it add array instead? And we'll create our method, and we'll take an int array, and we'll call it param1 because that still works. param1. And we will now have to create a loop to do our calculation. And we know how to do loops, so let's build a quick little loop. For int I equals 0. Oops, I'm going to find the keyboard a little bit. Let me fix that. Int I equals 0. I is less than param1.length, semicolon, I plus plus. So this will loop through the entire array, and we will calculate the sum equals the sum plus param1 bracket I. So this is saying add to the value of the sum the prior value of the sum plus the new array index. We are going to need to declare the value of the sum in the method, and we'll call it an integer. Int the sum equals 0. We'll initialize it to 0. So before we get into too much more, let's just run our code and make sure our method definition is correct. And I hit the wrong button, so once it reloads, we will run the program. There we go. And we did not get an error, so we know our method is syntactically correct. So syntax is correct. Now we're going to go check the logic. So in order to invoke this method, add array, we need to create an array. And we will create an integer array, int array, and we're going to use the curly bracket notation of defining an array. And we'll give it the values of 2, 4, 6, and 8. So we're specifying we want an array of 4 positions, of 4 elements, and we're going to specify the initial values. This is a little shortcut way of doing it, and just to save some time during our exercise here. We're going to temporarily block out this line, and we are going to use this, the sum equals add array, and then as the parameter, we are going to use int array. And we'll give it the semicolon at the end of the line to make sure we have the syntax correct. And if we run this, let us determine what we expect as our output. So if we had 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8, so 2 plus 4 is 6, 6 plus 6 is 12, 12 plus 8 is 20. I would expect to see the output down here is 20 after I click run, and I do. So we know that our method is working. It is adding things properly. Now, let's take a look at this var1 again. Well, we're not using var1 in our array. We're going to use the element 1 position instead. 1 is, and we reference it as int array bracket 0. And now if I run this code, I would expect a value of 2. And what did I do wrong? I left off the parentheses at the end, and it's telling me that in the error, so that's very helpful. And I'm going to, oops, I hit refresh again. I gotta stop doing that. So once it refreshes, I will run the program, and I'll expect to see my output of 20, and my element 1 will have a value of 2 to print. And there it is. And I guess technically it's element 0, so let me call it element 0. That makes more sense. So what did we show here? Well, nothing new yet. We showed that we can pass an array, we can create a loop and a method, and we can create our sum. But let's now put in param1 bracket 0 equals 999. Similar to what we did in the original one, in the original method with the integer values. So now if I run this, element 0 is 999. So I did not modify it down here in the main program. I did modify it in the method. And you can see that since I passed in an array, it's passing in the memory location of that array. So not only is the main program referencing the array, the method is referencing the array as well. So they're both pointing to the same memory location. And as a result, when we make a change in one area, it's being reflected in the other area. So it's an important property to remember that when you're passing items by reference, such as this array, changing that variable in the method will change the value of it in the main program. That is not true for primitives. It is just true for objects, and in this case, arrays. So I just wanted to demonstrate that and show you the difference. I will post this code in the sample code section and try it out, see how you can make it work. And that's it for now. I will see you in the next one.